Welcome to episode 41 in this chess puzzle adventure series starring Bobby Fischerman, Average Joe, and Peter Potzer. Previously, Bobby Fischerman and Average Joe had talked to the map maker who was going to take them to where Peter Potzer had been taken by the wolf. They were hoping to rescue him from wherever he was. But on their way, before they had left the Lost Ruins, a man on the side of the road flagged them down. He said, "Excuse me there, sir," pointing at Bobby Fischerman. "I noticed the golden key around your neck." If you guys remember from previous episodes in the series, one of those, a hermit, had given Bobby Fischerman the golden key, but he didn't know what it was for. The man said, "I noticed the key around your neck. Do you know what that's for?" Bobby said, "No, actually I don't. Could you tell me?" The man said, "Yes, actually I'm an archaeologist and I know exactly what that key is for. If you can solve my puzzle, I'll tell you what it does." Bobby said, "Sounds great. What's the position?" And with that, the archaeologist presented the following position to Bobby Fischerman. It's white to play and save the game, despite the fact that black has all of these pawns which are moving down the board in this direction. Before I tell you what Bobby Fischerman said, if you would like to pause and try to solve it yourself, what do you think the move is that saves the game for white? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, of course, there's two things kind of that are going on here. Number one, there's a lot of pawns that white has to figure out how to stop. The other part about this is that white has their own pass pawn, which is only 2 spaces away, that black is going to kind of have to keep an eye on as well. And so that leads to a very interesting dynamic. Now, before I tell you what the move is to save the game, let's talk about a move that doesn't work. Okay, so for example, if you were to try to play the move king to b3, thinking that you're going to use the king to stop these pawns, and then you're going to bring the bishop over this way to stop these pawns. That doesn't work, and here is why. f3, black is simply threatening to push this and get a queen. So we could play bishop to h4 to try to slow things down here. And here, black doesn't actually even push straight away. They are worried about this pawn. So they play king to c6, and now they can easily stop that pawn if we tried to push it forward, right? They would just go here. And even if at this point we decide, you know what, let's go ahead and grab the pawn, our bishop is set up to stop these, it's actually not, because now they simply play f2. This is defended, our king is too far away, and the bishop has no way to cover the white square, and black's simply going to get a queen. There's nothing that we can do, okay? So that's kind of the problem if you just start with a sort of logical looking move of trying to use your king, okay? So the only move that saves the position here for white is the move bishop takes c5 check. Now, this is an interesting move because, first of all, if black tries to take the bishop, well, then we're going to be getting a queen, right? So what else can black do instead of take the bishop? Well, you can play king to c6. And the point now is that if we push the pawn, the king is going to stop it. And now, if we try to do something like this, black could push the pawn, but we can use our bishop, and essentially this is going to be a draw because we can take this eventually. These pawns can't really push forward because the bishop is here. And basically, it looks like maybe black could do something, but the bishop is actually a really good defender, and this is just a draw. You just have to take my word for that. Eventually, we're going to be able to pick off the pawns with our king, for example, something like this. Try to defend, but we're going to come up here, and we just gobble up all the pawns, and it's just not enough for black. Okay, so what does that mean? It means going back here, black is obligated, actually, to take our bishop. They don't have time to do that because of what I just showed you. That's really the only move that makes sense. If you go here, well, then you're just going to lose the game because now white gets the queen first. So black says, okay, I'll take the bishop. And what do we play here? Of course, we play e7, trying to get a queen. Now, here is where it gets interesting because black also has 2 pawns. Now, they're not going to do this one because we're going to get the queen first, and it would stop it. But what black is going to do is play c2. And yes, we get the queen first, but now black gets the queen. And the problem that you might notice for us here if we're playing as white is that black has the queen and a whole bunch of pawns, which means eventually black's probably going to figure out a way to like push these down the board and maybe use them to shield the king from the checks. That's the problem that we are presented with. So in this position, what is the winning, not the winning move, sorry, the drawing move for white? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the only move here is queen to e5 check. Now, before we talk about why that's the only move, let's talk about some of the other checks that don't do the same thing. So if you go queen e7 check, this is what would happen. The king is going to run. You could go check, but the king is going to run. Check, the king's going to run. Check, and eventually the king gets to safety. There's no more really good checks. You could go here, but they could just block. And eventually this is going to come down here, get another queen. Black's going to win, okay? So that's queen e7 check. It doesn't work. You also have queen f8 check, okay? So there's really just 3 checks here. And again, the king is going to be able to kind of make a beeline this direction and eventually hide behind the pawns, and you can't really do anything. So the only move is queen to e5 check. And notice what it does. So black only has 3 options: king here, and king here. If you go king to c4, you should be able to see the move here. What does white play? You had a chance to look at that. That's correct. Queen takes c7 is actually a skewer, and now black loses the game because we simply take the queen, and these are not going to be good enough to stop the queen, okay? So black doesn't want to go down this way. So they only have 2 options that make sense: king to c6 and king to b6. So let's look at them one at a time. If they go king to c6, what's the move for white to save the game? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is the amazing queen to c3 check, which, by the way, is a fork. You're forking these pieces, but you say, Nelson, the queen just gets captured. But if that happens, look at this, look at this, look at this. It's a stalemate. It's a stalemate because we have nowhere to move our king, but we're not in check, and the game is a draw. Very nice little stalemate trick. And like I mentioned, it's a fork, so you have to take the queen. You can't do anything else. You just lose the game, right? Fascinating move, and that is the only way to get a draw. Now, instead of king c6, if black saw that, they might play king to b6, trying to avoid your little fork. You can't go here anymore because they don't have to take you, and it's, you know, they would do something else. So what do you play in this position? White to play and save the game. You got a chance to look at that. The move is queen to b2 check, which is another fork. And guess what? It's the same thing. They have to take you. And look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. It's a different type of stalemate, but it's still a stalemate. And the game is a draw. So just to recap what happened here, you had to sack the bishop, push your pawn, and even though black gets the queen and has a whole bunch of extra pawns, you play queen e5 to force the king this way. And then regardless of where they go, you sack your queen to ultimately end the game in a stalemate trap. It's pretty nice, right? It's pretty nice. So, of course, Bobby Fischerman solved it correctly. He saw all of the tricks. He saw the stalemate trap, and he told that to the archaeologist. Archaeologist said, very good, and now I will tell you what the key is for. This key is a magical key that will open the treasure chest of the dragon. Bobby said, and I assume that the treasure chest of the dragon is in the dragon's lair. The archaeologist said that is correct, but I do have one word of caution for you. If you open the chest and find the dragon's tear inside, please be very careful who you give that dragon's tear to, because if you give it to the wrong person, it's not going to be good. And that's where we'll pick up the story next time. Thank you guys, and if you like this video, please let me know, because at the end of the day, I try to make videos that people enjoy watching. So make sure you let me know if you want to see more chess adventures. Thank you guys. Stay sharp. Play smart. Actually, I'm supposed to say something else. Hold on. Happy adventures on the chessboard.